What if the richest person you know never actually looks rich? What if the guy at your office wearing a beat-up watch and driving a 10-year-old sedan has more money in the bank than your entire neighborhood combined? That sounds crazy, right? But here's the thing. It's not just possible. It's more common than you think. And once you know what to look for, you'll start seeing it everywhere. The way real wealth hides in plain sight is one of the most fascinating and misunderstood things about money. And by the end of this video, you will never look at people the same way again. But before we get into it, if you're someone who's serious about understanding money, success, and the psychology behind how truly wealthy people think and operate, take 5 seconds right now and subscribe to Mindluent and hit that like button. Because what you're about to hear isn't something they teach in school, and it just might change how you see the world entirely. Let's start with a story. There was a man named Ronald Reed. He lived in Brattleboro, Vermont. For most of his life, he worked as a gas station attendant and a janitor. He wore a beat-up coat that was held together by a safety pin. He drove an old Toyota. He parked far away from stores just to avoid paying for parking. His co-workers and neighbours thought he was just a humble, ordinary man, maybe even struggling a little. When Ronald Reed died in 2014 at the age of 92, people were absolutely shocked. Because Ronald Reed left behind an $8 million estate. $8 million. And he gave most of it to the local hospital and library. The people closest to him had no idea. That's the power of quiet wealth. And there are more Ronald Reeds walking around than you realise. So how do you spot them? Let's talk about the 10 signs that someone is secretly rich. The first sign is surprisingly simple. They never talk about money. And I mean never. Average people talk about money constantly. They complain about bills, brag about purchases, tell you what they paid for things. But the quietly wealthy, they're almost completely silent on the subject. Not because they're hiding something sneaky, but because wealthy people understand that money isn't something you perform for other people. It's a tool. You don't show off your hammer at a party. You just use it to build something. When someone genuinely has financial security, they don't need your validation. They already have the thing itself. The need to announce wealth is usually a sign that real wealth hasn't arrived yet. Now here's where it gets interesting. The second sign is that they're obsessed with time in a way that seems unusual. Have you ever noticed that some people who seem completely average are almost fanatical about how they spend their hours? They decline meetings that could have been emails. They don't waste weekends on mindless activities. They protect their mornings like they're guarding something precious. That's because they understand something most people don't. Time is the only currency that can't be earned back. Warren Buffett famously guards his calendar almost obsessively. He spends hours every day just reading and thinking, not answering emails, not attending networking events, just thinking. Because he knows that protecting time is protecting wealth. When you see someone who quietly but firmly controls how they spend their time, take a closer look. The third sign is their relationship with quality over quantity. Secretly wealthy people don't own a lot of stuff, but what they do own is exceptionally good. They might have one suit instead of 10, but that one suit is perfectly made and will last 20 years. They might drive a modest car, but their mattress, their shoes, their kitchen knives, those things are the absolute best they could find. This is called strategic spending. They invest heavily in things that affect daily life and performance, and they almost completely ignore things that are only visible to other people. The average person does the opposite, buying flashy things they can barely afford to impress people they barely know. Increasingly, most people completely miss about this. The fourth sign is that they're extremely calm during financial conversations. Think about a moment when someone brought up a big expense in a group setting, a vacation, a car, a mortgage. Watch how different people react. Some get anxious, some get defensive, some try to avoid the topic. But that one person who just sits there completely calm, maybe even slightly disengaged, not because they don't care, but because the numbers being discussed literally don't register as stressful for them. That calm is a tell. Real financial security changes your nervous system. When you're not one bad month away from a crisis, the entire emotional experience of money changes. Calmness around financial topics isn't just personality, it's often a sign of deep security. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you know someone in your life who fits this description? Because I guarantee you're thinking of someone right now. The fifth sign is that they never try to one-up anyone. Picture a dinner with a group of people. Someone mentions they went to Italy this summer. The average person either tries to top it or immediately starts calculating whether they can afford to go next year. The secretly wealthy person? They ask genuine questions about Italy. They're curious. They're interested in your experience. They have no need to compete because they've already made peace with exactly where they stand. This absence of competitive energy in social settings is one of the most subtle but reliable signals of real wealth. When someone has enough, comparison loses its power over them. Now here's the sixth sign, and this one surprises almost everyone. They're incredibly generous, but quietly. Not the kind of generosity that gets announced. Not the charity gala with their name on the wall. But the kind of generosity where they pick up dinner without making a big deal of it. Where they give a meaningful gift at exactly the right moment. Where they quietly help someone solve a problem. This pattern of invisible generosity comes from a deeply held abundance mindset. When you truly believe that money flows and that you'll always have what you need, giving feels natural, even effortless. Scarcity thinkers hold tight. Abundance thinkers release with ease. Ronald Read, that janitor with $8 million, gave the majority of it away at death to institutions that helped strangers he'd never met. Nobody asked him to, he just believed in it. That is the abundance mindset made visible. The seventh sign is that they read constantly. This sounds cliché, but the data on this is overwhelming. Studies of high net worth individuals consistently show that reading, especially non-fiction, biographies, history, and financial topics, is one of the most common daily habits among the truly wealthy. But here's the key distinction. They don't read to seem smart. They don't post photos of books on Instagram. They read privately, quietly, because they understand that knowledge compounds just like money does. One book opens a door. That door leads to a conversation. That conversation leads to an opportunity. That opportunity changes everything. The secretly wealthy person in your life is probably reading something right now that you'd never think to pick up. The eighth sign might make you rethink some people you've dismissed. They live in modest or even average homes by choice. Not all of them, but many of the most financially secure individuals intentionally choose to live below what they could afford. There are people living in middle-class neighborhoods, driving ordinary cars, who have seven-figure investment accounts. They made a choice long ago that the house doesn't make the life makes the life. And living modestly in a neighborhood where they feel no pressure to keep up with anyone gives them a freedom that money alone can't buy. It's a form of psychological arbitrage. They get the financial gains of high income without the lifestyle inflation that destroys most people's wealth. Here's where things get really powerful. The ninth sign is that they make decisions slowly and without emotion. Next time you're around someone who just doesn't react quickly to financial decisions, pay attention. They don't jump on a deal just because it feels urgent. They don't buy something because everyone else is buying it. They sit with big decisions. They sleep on them. They ask a lot of quiet questions. This behavior is actually one of the highest leverage wealth habits that exists. Emotional financial decisions, reacting to fear, to FOMO, to social pressure, destroy more wealth than almost any other single factor. The secretly wealthy person has trained themselves, often through painful experience, to never let emotion drive the car when it comes to money. And the 10th sign, This is the one that ties everything together. They are absolutely clear on what they actually want from life, not what society says they should want, not what their parents wanted for them, not what looks impressive at a reunion, but what they genuinely want. That clarity is the foundation of all quiet wealth. Because when you know exactly what kind of life you're building, you stop wasting money on everything that doesn't serve that vision. You stop buying things to fill emotional voids. You stop competing with neighbors. You stop making impulsive decisions. Every dollar starts to have a destination. Every hour starts to have a purpose. And that alignment between your values and your behavior, that's where real wealth is actually built. Think about what these 10 signs have in common. None of them are about appearance. None of them are about what car someone drives or what watch they wear or where they vacation. They're all internal. They're all about how someone thinks, how they feel about money, how they spend time, what they value. And this tells you something profound about wealth itself. Real wealth is an inside job. It's built in the mind before it ever shows up in the bank account. Now here's your identity shift, and I want you to really sit with this. You've probably been conditioned your entire life to judge financial success by what's visible. The house, the car, the clothes, the vacations posted on social media. But everything you've heard today should make it clear that the most visible wealth is often the most fragile, and the most invisible wealth is often the most unshakable. The person with a leased luxury car and credit card debt is performing wealth. The person with a paid-off modest home and a growing investment portfolio is living it. Which one do you want to be? Because here's the truth. Every single one of the 10 signs you heard today is a behavior. Not a talent, not a birthright, a behavior. And behaviors can be learned. They can be practiced. They can become habits. And habits become identity. You can start protecting your time like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. You can start choosing quality over quantity in your spending. You can start reading with intention. You can start practicing emotional detachment in financial decisions. You can start living below what you could afford, not because you're broke, but because you're building something. The signs of real wealth were never meant to be obvious. That's the whole point. And now that you know how to see them, you can start embodying them. If this video made you think differently about wealth, success, or the people around you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because one conversation, one shifted perspective, one idea planted at the right time, that can change the entire direction of someone's financial life. You might be that person for someone in your world. The richest people you'll ever meet might not look rich at all. But now, you know exactly what to look for. And more importantly, you know exactly who to become.